Probably seen the Nordic Curl floating around on the internet. It's brutal, it's humbling, and it's often skipped because it's just simply out of reach for a lot of people. Today, I'm going to break down how to progress it properly, how to make it part of your program, and how to show you why this is such an incredible tool. But here's what most people don't know this exercise started in Scandinavian sports labs in the 90s. They were looking for ways to prevent hamstring injuries, to bulletproof their athletes, and they found or stumbled across an absolute incredible tool that has proven to be over and over again one of the best things you can do for your hamstrings and your knees. Charles Poliquin started to pick this up back in the late 90s, 2000s, and he used it to build structural balance in elite lifters and build some crazy, crazy sprinters as well. Then Ben Patrick has brought it into the mainstream, preaching bulletproof knees and freaky posterior chains. This isn't just a trend, it's a movement that rewires performance from hamstring dominance and ACL resilience to explosive sprint speed, long length hypertrophy, mobility, and it's also something that is great for building muscle as well. And if you're chasing performance, longevity, and serious physique upgrades, the Nordic belongs in your toolbox. And sometimes where people get this wrong is they think of Nordics as just rehab or just something that's impossible. But the truth is, the best in the world use it because it trains the hamstrings eccentrically. And if you look at all of the research that shows up in terms of joint integrity, muscle tissue capacity, and tissue strength, you'll find that anything that lengthens a muscle while adding tension to that over time is going to be something that gives you just a bulletproof muscle. And so, where most injuries actually occur, especially in athletes, is when that muscle is under length or deceleration. And this is something that actually prevents that big time. So multiple studies will show with the Nordic curl, you're going to have reductions in hamstring strains, you're going to have increases in fascial length and also tendon strength. And because it actually works the distal end of the muscle, you're going to get thicker, stronger, more resilient tendons, and you're also going to get a thicker, stronger muscle as well. For bodybuilders, they actually use this and it gives you that really nice sweep in your hamstrings as well. It'll also give you better force absorption and it's going to help you sprint faster. It's not just for injury performance, it's for performance insurance, and the data doesn't lie. It works across athletes, lifters, yes, and even bodybuilders, which is very, very cool. But where should it live in your program? Let's break it down. So, if your goal is either athletic performance, strength, building muscle, or just longevity in general, there is a place for this for each of those goals. If you're looking at athletic performance for a start, what we will do with our athletes is we will generally use it at the start of the week or the furthest away from sprint sessions. Now, one of the superpowers of a Nordic is you're actually loading the hamstrings under eccentric load or as it stretches. What that does, though, is going to create a lot of muscle damage and have a lot of fatigue in the hamstrings. So, if you do the Nordic curl before you do a heavy or fast or high velocity sprint session, you may find that you're going to increase the risk of injuries. But if you have it at the start of the week where you've got lots of time to recover, or you have it 24 hours minimum, potentially 48 hours after a max velocity sprinting session or away from a max velocity sprinting session, you actually find something that it will prime the hamstrings, and it's also something that is going to help with hamstring strength and also decrease injuries as well. We will generally use this pre-season for deceleration control and also ACL resilience. In season, you got to be really careful with it because obviously, if they're team practices, they got games on, and they're doing a lot of extra on-foot activities, you want to make sure that the use of the Nordic, they're either very advanced and it's something they're very capable with, or it's something that they're using when they have downtime or no games on or something like that. If you're looking at strength athletes, okay, and so we use this a lot for our general strength athletes, so just people who love to be strong, train in the gym, also for our powerlifting and weightlifting athletes. Generally, where we'll use this is a couple of places. We will use it in a anatomical acclimation phase. An anatomical adaptation phase, where we're trying to improve the joint resiliency, the muscle tissue quality, and also the potential to produce more force from the tissues. Reason we do that is as let's say you've just come out of a strength cycle, so you might have competed, you might have maxed out and hit your peak weights. Generally that's going to come with some fatigue. There may be some slight imbalances, maybe the joints are a bit banged up. So going back to a phase or a little cycle of repairing those joints and tendons is going to be something that is very powerful. So we will use it often after a competition or in the early phases of a new cycle of training. Generally, what we'll do is we will pair it with a quad dominant movement for joint balance. And something we found to work really, really well is pairing it with, say, a front squat. Okay, and so if you have heavy front squats and you pair it with something like a Nordic or a Arab curl, generally we'll find the extra stability and potentiation of using that Nordic hamstring curl will actually improve the front squat quite a lot as well as protecting the knees and making that more resilient. The cool thing about this is because of that biarticular control, you're going to get a more stable squat. And for things like, let's say, for the front squat, it's a great builder of strength. Plus, it's also got those added benefits. So the more you can load the squat, because of the more stability, obviously you're going to get more benefits from it. We also like to use it early in an Olympic lifting block to improve hamstring length and coordination. So, say for example, if we have a lifter in an early phase of the block, they're potentially doing something like a high hang clean or a hang clean or hang snatches. So they're not getting through that full range of motion. And so we'll use something like a Nordic curl or a Harrop curl to increase that range of strength and also to improve the intermuscular coordination so that as we get into heavier and heavier loads, obviously the hamstrings help to extend the hips and a stronger hamstring that is able to coordinate better and contract harder and faster, with also some thicker, stronger tendons, you're going to get more force output. And it is something that is going to set up our strength athletes very, very well. And also with that eccentric nature, generally you're going to recruit and promote fast twitch fiber development. And as an Olympic weightlifter, it's something that is obviously very, very important. So the other beautiful things like this as well, we will use for our strength athletes. Generally, once again, we'll use it, far away from like a deadlift session or a heavy posterior chain session, just purely because of the muscle damage. We may pair it as an accessory on a posterior chain day, but say if we were to use it paired with the squat or anterior loaded squat. Generally, we'll find a couple of days after or whenever you get to your heavy pulls or your heavy deadlifts, you'll find that the hamstrings are potentiated. You're able to lock in position better, feel the hamstrings, and essentially load those hamstrings just a little bit better because you have that potentiation effect. And you're just getting that little bit of feedback because there still will be that little bit of muscle fatigue, generally a little bit of muscle soreness, a little bit of DOMS, and that touch of muscle damage that just allows you to get that feel. So it can be brilliant a few days before, especially in those early phases. And if you find, say, an intermediate lifter, they struggle to feel their hamstrings in something like the deadlift. That can be a great tool to use, earlier in the week to potentiate for later on down the week. Another crazy thing too is like for bodybuilders. So all of the research points to that, like as a muscle lengthens and stretches, that's where a lot of the muscle protein synthesis is being triggered. Okay, it's one of the strongest stimuluses for muscle hypertrophy is when that muscle is loaded under stretch, and the Nordic curl or even a Harrop curl is something that's absolutely brilliant for that because let's say you're in early bodybuilding phase or you're in off season, okay, and you're looking to improve performance, you're looking to improve your neuromuscular coordination, you're looking to improve the ability to contract the muscle harder, build thicker, stronger tendons, build that denser look by having those harder, fast twitch fibers. Something like a Nordic curl can be absolutely brilliant. absolutely brilliant because getting that neuromuscular connection, when you go back to something that is more stable, something like a seated hamstring curl or a lying hamstring curl, you're going to find that you're able to contract a lot harder, not only because of the ability of doing a more difficult, more unstable exercise, you're having to recruit more of those muscle fibers. When you go back to that stable exercise, you're able to tap into that and extract as much of that muscle's potential, but also, because of that eccentric loading, you're getting a stronger, thicker muscle, stronger, thicker tendons, and also you're desensitizing the Golgi tendon organs, which allows you to get more out of each muscle contraction. So, using something like a Harrop curl, it's not only fun, and it gives you something other than just being on machines 12 months of the year. It's also got those neuromuscular connections and benefits that will help potentially get more out of each rep in your bodybuilding training. So, how do we actually progress this and train this and put this into a program? Stage one, we will do isometric holds. Okay, and so we use two different types of iso holds here. One is we want to build the capacity of the hamstring. And also the positions of the hamstring, and also we want to improve the length or the range of strength of the hamstring. So we will do a GHD top or bottom hold. Now, here's the top hold where essentially you're going to start in this position and then you're going to lean as far as you possibly can while keeping your ribs and your hips stacked, and then just holding that position for somewhere between 15 to 60 seconds. Now, these are absolutely brutal, and you'll find that your hamstrings are just going to absolute town. But what we're doing, once again, is improving that neuromuscular connection. We're building the capacity to build for the harder variations of the Nordics, and it's also just building, a bit of thickness and strength to those tendons as well. Now, the bottom hold position of this, obviously the hamstring is under length and you're actively trying to pull yourself in as you're stretching that hamstring, the glutes, the whole entire posterior chain. Now, this here is going to build once again the thickness, the strength of those tendons, and then also teach you to contract that muscle really, really hard. I actually found I did this method for about 3 weeks, and my neuromuscular connection, my muscle tone, and my ability to use my hamstrings just went through the roof. I was also able to get into much better positions with my pulls. My I guess my recovery after my jujitsu training was just much, much better because I was always in this position and I was working and getting these tendons under a lot of load, a lot of tension for a long period of time. And so for these bottom holds, you're going to do somewhere between 1 minute and 3 minutes. Okay, and your goal that whole time is to contract at an intensity that you can hold for that whole time. These are absolutely brilliant. It's something that I wish more and more people would do. If you would like a video on this loaded stretching, just comment loaded below and I'll make sure I get it done because this stuff is absolutely brilliant. Now, for the stage one progressions, you generally want to do about 2 to 5 sets of about 30 seconds to 3 minutes total time under tension. Okay, and so for the top holds, generally you're going to be able to hold 15 to 30 seconds. For the bottom holds, anywhere from 30 to 3 minutes is going to be the key there. Then we move on to stage two, and this is where we're building the tissue quality and the tissue capacity to handle volume and also start to build the movement pattern as well, and an easier pattern. So we actually use the Harrop curl here, and the Harrop curl is very, very underrated. And when you look at top speed, the Harrop curl is actually it mimics top speed and also acceleration in terms of extending the hips. So the Harrop curl, and it also is one of the best exercises if you're looking to get faster, improve your hip extension, and obviously improve the quality of the hamstring as well. Because it also does work the proximal end of the hamstring a lot. That glute ham tie-in is quite a common injury with runners, and also getting that hip extension right at the top. It is something that is going to bulletproof the top half of the hamstring, decrease the risk of those glute ham tie-in tendon issues, which are quite common in running athletes, but also in improving that hip extension capacity, the ability to hold and maintain a strong torso position is something that is going to be beneficial as you progress to further progressions of this. Generally, after a couple of weeks, you can add light weight, but what you're aiming for here is roughly 3 to 5 sets of 6 to 10 reps. If you're adding pauses or eccentric training, you generally want to work at around 30 to 60 seconds time under tension here. How you'll progress it, if you can do at least 6 to 8 quality reps with 4 to 6 seconds control or good isometric control, then you'll progress and add load. Once you've got 5 to 10 kilos more than your body weight and a dumbbell, then you can move on to eccentric only Nordics. This is what we will generally do is we will start off with an incline board. I actually prefer using the incline board, slowly coming down, controlling down under that eccentric, slowly decreasing the angle of the incline so that you can eventually get to a full eccentric control to flat. Now, when you get to that full eccentric control, this is where if you've done it well with the incline band board, you probably don't need to do a band assisted. But using band assisted is something that can progress people quite quickly with a Nordic because it's helping you at that bottom position, which is the hardest part. The only thing I don't like about that is obviously you're getting that assistance at the hardest parts, but you can decrease the band so that that is still a challenge, because if it's too light and it's giving you too much assistance at the bottom, you're not actually getting the main benefit of this exercise, which is the muscle getting stronger at that lengthened position. So generally what we'll do with here is once you can do 3 to 6 reps with 4 to 6 seconds of lowering control, then you can start to progress to full range Nordics. And with these, work on control versus ego, okay? Earn the right to go to full Nordics. Full Nordics are brilliant. So when you get to full range, control all the way down 4 to 6 seconds, explode back up. You can start off with a band, exploding back up if you've earned the right. But generally, if you've done all these progressions the right way, by the time you get to this progression, you'll find that just controlling those reps down is absolutely phenomenal. Now, how you progress these, once you can get anywhere between, let's say, 4 to 8 reps with really, really good control, I would argue you're probably going to add some weight, whether it's in a weight vest, you might have chains, you might have a dumbbell and just hold on to that. If you can do 10 kilos more than your body weight, for 6 to 8 reps with 4 seconds control down, your Nordic curl is probably as good as it needs to be. It probably doesn't need to be too much stronger, because then you can progress to things like heavy RDLs, heavy pulls, power cleans, stuff like that. So yeah, that's where you want to work to with your full Nordics. Now, there are some special methods that work really, really well with this, as you can do overspeed reps, and these are something that probably I wouldn't necessarily do it with a professional athlete or someone who is an athlete or a sports player, just purely because there's probably more risk to reward. Overspeeding that eccentric, if you've built the capacity for it, absolutely brilliant in terms of that deceleration. So get someone to push on the back, decelerate, catch, bang, come back up. Then we also have cluster reps. Okay, so I quite love cluster reps if you want to build that strength capacity. And so this probably work really, really well for a strength athlete. Or it does work really well for a strength athlete. It may be something too. If you're a bodybuilder, you might do for cluster reps, you might do sets of 3 with a really, really heavy eccentric, so let's say 5 to 10 kilos. Control down for 5 seconds, explode back up. 3 reps, rest 15 to 30 seconds, and just do cluster or myo reps. Be absolutely brilliant for that hypertrophy in the hamstrings. Generally, with these special methods, the final method here is going to be these band assisted overspeed Nordics. Generally, we'll use this one when we are peaking power or peaking speed in an athlete. You'll see here that what it does is it teaches that muscle, the stretch reflex, really, really quickly. That turnaround speed. Once you've built that eccentric control, that turnaround speed, this is going to allow the athlete to build the capacity, build the tendon and joint structure to be allowed those higher velocities or used to those higher velocities. So it can be something that's brilliant before you go into a max speed phase of training. So with all of these, obviously you've got to honor the progressions because high-powered methods lose their potency when the dose is wrong. Nordics are tough, but so is everything worth doing. They build hamstrings that don't tear under pressure, knees that don't collapse under chaos, and performance that doesn't fade when game speeds up. And they're just a fucking sick exercise to do in the gym, make you stronger than ever, and they'll build some great muscle. So train to a smart, earn your reps, and over time you'll see what most people miss. This isn't an optional anymore; it's essential. If you'd like a full 2 week example or a 2 week trial on our athletic bodybuilding program, which does program a lot of Nordics, just send me a message at Dylan Limitless for our 2 week and just send me the message Nordic or comment down below and I'll sort you out. Hope you got a lot from that. Catch you next time.